And hello, everyone. Welcome to the Social Justice Forums. I am Daren, Jaime, and of course, we thank you for joining us. And if you're asking the question, what is the show all about? Well, we take a look at many of the inequities that people face. We talk about social justice. We talk about the different topics that are associated with social justice. We have different guests, and they provide multiple points of view. And then we also provide civic engagement. And we encourage you to stay with us because the Social Justice Forums begins right now. And we welcome you back to the show. The Corporation for Supportive Housing is advancing solutions using housing as a platform for services to improve the lives of the most vulnerable people, maximize resources, as well as building healthy communities. We have with us now the Metro Region Director at Corporation for Supportive Housing, Patricia Hernandez. And Patricia, good to have you.
Hi, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Glad to have you. And so when we talk about supportive housing, I think sometimes many people have different conceptions, but before we get into the work that you do, how do you define supportive housing for somebody who may not be so familiar?
Sure. So the basic fundamental is supportive housing is affordable housing with flexible wraparound voluntary services. So everybody who's in supportive housing, it's an affordable housing unit. They have their own lease, it's permanent housing, and they are able to access wraparound services. For instance, they usually have a case manager assigned or a social worker that connects them to mental health services, employment, and other things.
And when we talk about supportive housing, that's the work that you do, right? And really helping people to have housing, better housing. When you look at the state of housing right now, how do you see it?
It's very challenging. I think we're in a housing crisis, not just here in New York, but across the country, specifically an affordability crisis. So, what we try to do is make sure that there's enough supportive housing development coming through the pipeline. So, at CSH, we are a lender and we provide lending products to organizations interested in developing supportive housing. So, when we think of trying to really increase the supply of supportive housing. We do that through our work. We do a lot of policy and advocacy to ensure that there's the right budgets for supportive housing, that it's easier to access for folks, and really focus and have been working a little bit with the administration here in New York City around better ways to access supportive housing and just in general develop more affordable housing.
And when we talk about, supportive housing, affordable housing, there's always been the question about race and how race plays a part in this. When you look at race, ethnicity, and demographics, talk to us about the equity that you see and what's needed from your perspective.
Absolutely. So, when we look at the homeless system, there's no surprise. Black folks and people of Hispanic backgrounds are overrepresented in our shelter system. They're also overrepresented in crisis systems. For example, emergency rooms, hospitals, jail, prison, all those spaces. So, what we really think of supportive housing is being able to target those very vulnerable populations and ensure that they're able to have access to quality housing. Really thinking about different approaches to make sure that we're including equity, that we are giving a lot of support to particularly Black and Hispanic folks when they come into the housing, looking at different populations. So for instance, a large population, unfortunately, a lot of Black men are involved in the criminal justice system, and they historically have had little access to supportive housing. So thinking about ways that we can create better access and bring out our advocacy tools in order to make that happen.
And when we talk about making things happen, obviously you're spending a lot of time on the front lines, really trying to make things happen. Give us a little bit of background into the initiatives that you have that really deal with this and really trying to combat some of these challenges that we're talking about.
Yeah, and definitely, if I'm on the front lines, but really, we work very collaborative with our community-based providers who are the ones on the ground doing the work. But some of the things that we are working on, so we have this initiative that CSH actually has had launched for quite some times, and it's an initiative that's around the country. It's called Fuse, Frequent User Systems Engagement, and it really is the thinking that for people who are experiencing, who are moving through crisis systems, shelter, jail, street, emergency rooms, that the intervention that can help and get them stabilized in one place is supportive housing. So what the Fuse initiative does is get all the crisis systems together, look at a subset of people who really are not getting connected through these systems and targeting them to get them into supportive housing. And it's really a housing first approach. Get them in through the door to get supportive housing, and we can worry about everything else later. And I think what's really great about this approach is there's a lot of data that's shown that by giving somebody supportive housing, you're going to see decrease in Medicaid expenditure and other costs that could be better suited putting into the community. So of course, it's much more expensive to keep somebody in jail than it is to keep somebody in supportive housing. So our thinking is that by, intervening and really creating this community-based approach, we're able to save the city and the state lots of dollars. And hopefully at one point, those dollars can continue to be reinvested into supportive housing. Another initiative that we are working on is called the RACE initiative, which stands for Redesigning Access by Centering Equity. And this is our goal to increase the development of supportive housing by engaging more BIPOC developers. So Black people, Black Indigenous people of color. And we're doing this through some of our lending products. So being able to provide, our loan and also provide grants to folks, helping them with technical assistance and extra technical assistance, especially if they're new to the field. And we think it's very important to target this population in particular, because as we know, there's still a lot of systemic racism, and we hear that folks are still having challenges accessing capital. So how can we advance and make sure that BIPOC developers are getting the same opportunities as other types of developers, and making sure that they're going to build in the neighborhoods that we want to see building, and that they're going to serve the population that represents them.
And when we talk about the population, we know that the demographics of New York City are changing, and they're changing rapidly. How have you been able to deal with the rapid change in generation, in demographics, and then also, it is, when I use the word generation, there also is some generational shifts that are occurring too. What are you noticing from your perspective on the housing market by way of trends that maybe we should be paying attention to?
Yeah, I think we're seeing increasingly more families entering homelessness, which is never good. But also that lets us to think what kind of housing is out there, right? Are we developing more studios or one bedrooms? Are we really developing family size units? Given that the demographic and there's increased families going to the shelter. Another piece that we are focused on quite a bit is the older adult population and how they're aging in supportive housing, and what are some of the supports and accessibility issues that folks need to maintain their home and age in place. So we're doing a lot of capacity building and a lot of advocacy around that in particular.
And when we talk about advocacy, some of the great work that you do doesn't always get highlighted, right? So, talk to me about the impact of what you feel the agency's been able to have on people's lives, given the fact that this is such a crucial part of someone's everyday life and what somebody needs to function in society.
Mhm. We really work closely with our collaborators and our partners around funding for supportive housing. I think we've been very successful in partnership with our collaborators to get, last year's administration, Mayor De Blasio and Governor Cuomo, to put money into supportive housing with commitments that are 15 to 20 years of supportive housing development. So that's been amazing. We are working now really hard on expanding services in supportive housing to make sure that folks who are providing the supportive housing have a living wage, and also that organizations have enough money to provide the expert services that they have. Also thinking about how do we make supportive housing accessible? And I spoke a little bit earlier about people who are leaving incarceration. So we're doing some advocacy around changing and adjusting some eligibility definition to not make people coming out of jail ineligible for supportive housing, but rather make them eligible. So making some shifts in language and really thinking about jail as a homeless setting, that when people leave, they're still considered.
And when we talk about how we can expand the field, what are some of the ways that we can go about really expanding this market to really reach more people?
definitely more education on what supportive housing is. I think a lot of folks still have misconceptions. Engaging affordable housing developers and really making the pitch that adding supportive housing units to their development is actually a benefit. That means increased services into the community, increased services for their building. So I think it's just more of that and more funding for supportive housing. The special sauce in supportive housing is the services funding. So being able to for the providers to be adequately funded really allows us to bring in comprehensive services to those most in need in supportive housing.
For yourself, when we look at where things are and the way things are going, talk to me about what you anticipate seeing over the course of the next year in this area. Do you feel like the attention will be given in the manner, we talk about our elected officials, we talk about other community-based organizations that are really grassroots of doing the work. But sometimes it seems as though handicapped in being able to do the work. Do you feel as though you have enough support in this area to really be able to make some necessary change?
I think we're getting there. I think that's always a challenge. What can, city and state government do? There but there are a lot of challenges happening right now. There's a big homeless crisis. I know, having folks who are migrants coming into New York has also added to the stress on the system. So we have to think about everybody and how to move people out of shelter into permanent housing. I think we have a lot of great groups that have wonderful ideas how to create access and how to, things around anti-discrimination. For instance, we have a bill out there to remove criminal background checks for people going into housing. That would open up the door for so many people who have the money to pay for the housing, have the stability, just can't get anybody to rent to them. So I think the more we push on those bills and the more we get community-based organizations and continue to knock on the door of city government and electeds, I think we can go somewhere. But it takes a long time. It's quite hard.
Yeah, and Patricia, I know we talked a little while ago about some of the benefits of supportive housing because when you talk about people who are in substance abuse or people who may be coming out from incarceration, one of the biggest challenges I think that really happens is stability. And if you can turn the corner on stability, there's so many things that could happen in a person's life. But um, give me a little bit more about that now, and share with us a little bit more about that because you really are in the work that you're doing, helping to provide some stability in areas where people are really, really needing a good hand up.
Absolutely. It's extremely difficult to maintain sobriety, take medications, take care of your health if you're on the street. For example, like, outside of CSH, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, so I work directly with clients. And, I've worked with people that have diabetes, that have substance use issues, that have mental health, and they're not able to take their medication on a regular basis. They're not able to make it to their appointments. So as much as they want to do better and feel better, they're not able to do that while living in a street or in a shelter. So having a place to live, a a place where they can rest, a place where they can uh, think about what they want to do with their life, a place where they have support from case managers and other, really makes a difference, and it helps people thrive. It's not just giving somebody an apartment and giving a key and say goodbye. It's giving that plus what else do you need to make sure that you have a quality life, that you're thriving in your community. So I think there's no replacement for housing. Housing is foundational.
So when we look at the work that you do, obviously very intense, very hands-on. Um, Give us a little walkthrough as to if you have a client, how you're able to really take that client from point A to point B.
So just to confirm, we don't work directly with people, but we work with organizations to help them build capacity and provide the resources.
I should
So,
apply.
yep. So, but still, we're kind of part of all the systems, like from entry to lease up. So, a person usually a lot of the connection to supportive housing comes through somebody who's in a shelter system and is identified as having chronic homelessness, meaning they've been on the street or in a shelter for prolonged periods of time, might have a behavioral health issue, might have HIV/AIDS, youth that are aging out of foster care. And the way it works is they would work with someone in the community, a case manager or social worker or other, to complete a supportive housing application. So access to supportive housing is all through a system called Coordinated Assessment and Placement System. And there's an application that determines the person's eligibility for supportive housing. Once that's determined and they're approved, then there's an interview process, right? So the clients and the supportive housing providers actually meet each other. The client gets to see their unit and decide whether or not that's the place that they want to live. It sounds easy, but it takes a long time, right? If we think about, the application could be a little bit lengthy. You need a psychiatrist or a clinician to sign off on the application. And with limited mental health resources in the community, it's really hard to find those supports. And it just takes a while because there's not a lot of vacancies available for people with certain eligibility. So it could be any between, you have your approval to maybe 6 to 9 months down the line where you're actually in an apartment. So it can be quite stressful. And I think the way our system's set up is it's really hard to connect people to supportive housing when they're outside of the shelter system. And this is something we're trying to make better. If somebody's in a hospital, if somebody's coming out of jail, if somebody's in a treatment facility, how do they gain access to supportive housing so they don't have to enter the shelter system and wait for things to happen on that side, but we can really prevent that homelessness.
Hey, Patricia, let me ask you, are you optimistic, given that we're, at the start of 2023, that when it comes to the issue of supportive housing, that we can see some great turnaround this year?
I'm really optimistic that, there's a lot of plans for funding supportive housing in the governor's announcements and of her State of the State address. I think, it was a great move that in the mayor's administration that he hired a chief housing person to really take a look at some of the gaps in housing. So I think there's some steps. I think there's some investment, and we just need more. Right, we just need to continue because I think there are a lot of folks out there who have a need. There's about 70,000 people in just shelter alone, so we need that investment. But I think I'm optimistic that the city and state can work together, and really optimistic for what Governor Hochul has put forth so far.
Yeah. And so for people who want to find out more information about how to get connected with you, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, you can visit our website at csh.org/metro. So one thing to know about me and my team, we not only work in New York, but we do a lot of strategy, advocacy, and programmatic work in New Jersey and in Pennsylvania. So again, you can look at our website and there's an ability to contact us at csh.org/metro.
And I want to thank you for coming and sharing with us today. I like to say that when it comes to supportive housing, it really is beneficial to so many people who can just get a hand up. And stability, as you mentioned, is one of the things that many people lack. And you can't get stability until you get housing. But thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for being a great partner in the work for supportive housing. And great to have this conversation with you, Patricia.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All righty. We want you to stay with us. We got more forums. We encourage you. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. Of course, it's awkward to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping. Hey, bestie, how's sketches, baby? It's hard to get their attention. Ready? Go. Yes, look at that. You didn't turn yours over. So if you want to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping, you have to get it trending. Right, backpack kid?
Let's do it.
First, invite your kid to do the vape talk. Let's try this. All right.
Why is he here?
Yeah, I gotta get it trending, honey.
Come on.
To the left. To the right. Let's go.
Oh, honey, can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
I see a lot of your friends vaping.
Visit talkaboutVaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Can you see anything different as a pill?
No.
You don't know?
Fentanyl is being mixed into everything now. There's only one thing that will save somebody's life. That is naloxone nasal spray.
Fentanyl, it's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
Why would drug dealers put a lethal dose of fentanyl in drugs if they know it's so harmful?
Really just all about the money.
I just didn't realize that one pill could change your whole life.
More kids should know.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Even though we didn't grow up together, he's my favorite brother.
Hey, sis.
I'm the baby of the family, and he's the gentle giant.
What you know about poor Georgia?
Man, please, that's a classic.
You know when they say people are a rare breed? Yeah, he's that.
I'm sorry, I'll be back in a few hours.
Don't worry, Shug, you know I'm for you.
I know.
Go get the football.
That was my favorite memory. He was always for ya. This is a true story of me, Bridget Floyd, and this guy, George Perry Floyd Jr., my big brother.
Most hiring algorithms would scream me out.
Some bosses couldn't see me as a leader.
I've run this place for 20 years, but I still need to prove that I'm more than what you see on paper. I've been running code as long as I've been able to reach a keyboard.
This is what I do. It's second nature for me, coordinating 100 details at once.
It's the way my mind works. I have a very mechanical brain.
I sold them on my skills.
You gotta be so good they can't ignore you.
My magic is
analytics and empathy. That's how I'm getting clients. You have to have the confidence in yourself to show up and defy the odds.
I'm more than who I am on paper.
I never got a college degree. And today, I'm the CEO of my own company. People want to tell me I'm one in a million, when actually I'm one of millions. Stars are all around us. It's time for them to shine.
I don't know why you're so sad. You've got a roof over your head.
Bro, you gotta stop with that depression stuff. That's a white people thing.
Escúchame, en esta casa los hombres no lloran.
You all right?
It just feels like it's coming from everywhere.
Do you want to talk about it?
Thanks for hearing me out, bro. Appreciate it.
You can talk to me if you're feeling sad. Whenever you need to talk, I'm here, okay?
And welcome back to the show. Bottom Line is a not-for-profit organization that is striving to eradicate income gaps in the degree attainment rates to elevate racial equity as well as economic mobility for students of color. Now, the trained advisors deliver intensive one-on-one advising and support from college applications all the way up until college graduation. We're pleased to have joining us the managing director of the program at Bottom Line. We've got Victoria Coker. And Victoria, glad to have you with us. And as I think about it, I think about being able to graduate from college. And for some, it just seems to be something that's, pretty easy to go by. And then for others, it's not so hard, but you do a good job of really bridging the gap there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, thanks very much for having me. Happy to be engaged with you all today. So we support primarily first generation college going students coming from low income backgrounds, and And so you can imagine the barriers that these students are facing when they're applying to and persisting through college look very different than perhaps their wealthier peers. And so really what our advisors do is normalize some of the adversity our students are facing and really act as a thought partner, a coach, a guide, a teacher to help them really overcome any obstacle that might be in their path, whether it be related to the degree itself, right, academics, or career planning and thinking about what they want to do with the degree, or financial aid, or just kind of general life, right, time management, roommate issues, grappling with more basic need challenges like food or income insecurity, things like that. So really a holistic advising model. And so every student's journey is unique, though we know having a partner for anyone along that journey is always impactful.
And so some of the work that you do really is trying to deal with mostly college access too, right? Making sure that students have access. Talk to me about college access and some of the things that you're engaged in.
Yeah, so we have two programs, the first of which is our College Access Program. So this year in New York, we're serving about 400 students coming from across the 5 boroughs. And these students are coming to us right before their senior year of high school. So they know they're interested in going to college. They know this is a dream that they're wanting to pursue, but they're not really sure how to get from point A to point B. They might not have a parent or a sibling or a guardian or has been through the process before. So a lot of what our advisors do is help guide them, right? So we have a very intensive advising model. So our caseloads of advisors to students are about 65 to 1. In comparison, in a New York City public high school, that ratio is nearly 500 to 1. So you can imagine the amount of time we're able to spend with those students is much more significant than they might be receiving at school. So we help them craft a college list. We help them think about, what do I want to do? What kind of majors am I interested in? Do I want to stay at home? Do I want to go away and dorm? Making sure that list is balanced in terms of schools that they're likely to get into, schools that are a little bit more of a reach for them, schools they're really excited about, and all grounded within a lens in affordability. So all schools that are going to be a strong economic option for them and their families. So we help students through the whole process, right? Writing their essays, doing the applications, both financial aid and also college applications, and then ultimately help those students make an informed college decision. So a college that's going to be a good academic fit for them, that's going to be a good kind of social match, and then also, again, is affordable for them, as we know that affordability piece is such a key component as it relates to college persistence.
I know that, a lot of students right now are really on the recovery side because we're, coming out of, still in, dealing with the whole COVID crisis. And COVID definitely handicapped a lot of people particularly in the education field. Talk to me about this because when you look at the work that you're doing right now, that COVID learning gap and things like that, give me your take.
Yeah, I mean, it is certainly remains a challenge for a lot of students, right? Especially those who had multiple years of virtual learning, right? Not gaining that same level of academic skill and readiness that they might have if they were in the classroom every single day. And so we certainly see this with our students, right? And I think it boils down to the ability of helping students make that really smart match of a college, right? GPAs are even heightened in the application process now, as many schools have moved to a test optional approach. So GPAs matter more than ever, right? And so the impact that has on a student's ability to get into a school and then ultimately their persistence on that campus. And so advisors take all of this into account when they're helping to build a list for a student and when they're really thinking about what is the right college, where are they going to be academically successful, what schools might require remedial coursework that might impact their ability to sustain their financial aid over the long term, how are they in an environment that's both supportive and sets them up for success. So it really comes down to that academic fit component, acknowledging that the readiness of students just looks different than it has in years before, and wanting to make sure students are making a choice for college that is really going to help them persist over the long term. And that's where our success program comes in too, right? We're not just getting students through the door. We're not just saying, okay, you have been accepted to college, our work is done. We realize there are significant barriers that students are facing when they go to college. And so we're continuing to work with them every step of the way. So if they are encountering some of those academic challenges when they're on campus or adjusting to the different expectations that come with college level work, that we're helping them access the resources both within their campus and the
You know, honestly, if you're not doing the academic piece right, there is a financial
Yes.
consequence that actually comes with that, right? And I think so many times we don't understand that there's an even more of a financial burden because if I'm in school longer, guess what? I'm paying more and I'm not getting that scholarship. So I'm definitely paying more at the end. And that becomes something that you got to pay back, which leads to debt, which leads to really being able to recover. And I know that you really spend some time trying to navigate some college students to not have to go through that and really to be able to say, listen, you know what, there is a better way and this could possibly even save you some dollars.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, affordability is really a key component of how we think about college matching for our students and sustainability. So when we talk with our college access students, affordability is at the center of the discussion. We make sure that they have affordable college options on their list, right? And not just schools that are going to be accessible financially for their first year. As we know, academic financial aid packages can change as a student progresses, either to your point around kind of failure to maintain satisfactory academic progress, or just because schools entice them in with a really strong first year package and then they cut some of that aid moving forward. We have tons of data around this, right? We've advised thousands of students in New York. We have catalogs of financial aid award letters and what they look like from various schools and whether that's going to be a sustainable option for a student and their family. And so we always have those conversations. What does this mean in terms of how much debt you're going to come out with? What career path are you interested in? Can you afford to have this level of debt? How does financial just like impact persistence more generally? And so we always have these conversations with students around affordability, even when they're difficult, right? Even when a dream school seems academically within reach, but financially out of reach, which are the hardest conversations to have. But finances are one of the leading causes that students don't persist. And I think one of the worst case scenarios is a student who stops out and still has debt, right? They have no degree, but they still have mounting debt that they're required to pay back. And so we do everything in our power in our advisement to prevent that. To give you a sense, our average debt at graduation within the organization is under $20,000. So we only advise students to take, federal loans, which are kind of the most secure loans, right, and avoid some of the private debt that can get folks into what feels kind of like a burden that they aren't going to be able to sustain once they've graduated in terms of payment schedules. And so we continue to believe that affordability has to be at the front of these conversations if we're really truly setting students up to be successful.
When you talk about setting students up, obviously having the conversation with them is the first part, really getting them the buy-in. And to get that buy-in, sometimes we talked about COVID. You have to have that virtual environment, but there's a difference between the virtual and also being able to see somebody face to face and having that conversation with them. Talk to me about this a little bit, because having those face to face interactions, what does that mean in the life of a student, and what kind of hope and energy does that give, as opposed to possibly that virtual component where we're just, hey, communicating like this, because I know there is some value to being able to see somebody face up.
Yeah, exactly. There is value to that, right? And so pre-pandemic, our services and our programs were entirely in person. So our access students would come to our office, which is actually located in downtown Brooklyn, and we would deliver services on the campus where our college students were enrolled. Pandemic hit overnight. We had to transition all of our programs to a virtual environment for nearly 3 years, right? And this is the first year we're really embracing this hybrid atmosphere, right? I think, as all of us are doing, we both understand the critical components that come with in-person services and want to maintain the flexibility that comes with some of those virtual services as well. And so our program has both, right? We believe that relationships are at the core of our model, and we believe relationships are best built in person. So some of our students have all of their services delivered in person if that's their preference, while other students, we ground them and said, we want to have 1, 2, 3 services each semester in person, while the rest can be virtual depending on your schedule, depending on your advisor schedule, accessibility to campus or the office, conflicting engagements, whether it be work or extracurriculars, familial responsibilities, things like that. And so we're both maintaining what we believe is the most impactful piece of the in-person model, which is the relationship building, while also infusing the flexibility that comes with virtual programming.
Yeah. And so as you're looking right now, talk about something going on throughout the course of this year and what people could pretty much tap into.
Yeah, so it's an exciting year at Bottom Line. So here in our New York office, again, we have about 400 students in our access program and about 1,850 students in our college program. And a couple exciting initiatives happening too. So in our high school program, we're also piloting services in schools for the first time. So we have advisors who are in high schools themselves delivering services where the students physically are every single day. And then within our success work, we're continuing to kind of iterate over our hybrid model and really think about how students are most engaging with our work, infusing career services into the model so that students not only are graduating, but have readiness for a career, right? They have a professional network, they have professional capital, a resume with internship and part-time job experience on it. So really making sure that they're positioned to land in a strong first destination after they graduate. We also, as an organization, received a really impactful $15 million gift last year from Mackenzie Scott. And so in the process of thinking through what the best use of those funds are, so both our national office and each of our regional offices are currently undergoing a strategic planning process. So thinking about what does growth look like within each region. So here in New York, we're serving about 2,350 students this year. How many can we serve, right? What is the appetite and the landscape available in New York City in terms of growth? And then what's the fundraising piece of that, right? How are we engaging foundations, individual givers, corporate partners to raise the funds necessary? Because of course, we never charge a student or their families for our services. So lots of growth and exciting things on the horizon. Our applications are also open for both programs. So we're looking for students to serve in the upcoming academic year for both our high school access program. So students who are currently in their junior year of high school and are interested in receiving intensive supports throughout their college application process. And also students who will be matriculating to college in the next year and are looking for support services once they're enrolled and on campus to make sure that they're staying on track for graduation. So I'd encourage interested folks to visit our website, bottomline.org, as a way to find out your eligibility for the program and if it might be a good fit for you, as we're actively seeking new applicants.
When we talk about college graduation, that's the goal of everybody, right? To see students go across that finish line. What are you seeing by way of college graduation rates with the work that you're doing? Do you find that by entering into a student's life, having that kind of communication, having those interviews, and not just the interviews, but also the counseling and the supportive services, are we finding that this is helping to transcend into better college graduation rates?
Yeah, great question. And in the nonprofit space, a lot of what folks are doing, right, is under the assumption that their services are beneficial to their communities and that it's impacting the students or the population served. Here at Bottom Line, we had a unique opportunity a couple years ago to engage in a randomized controlled trial, which is essentially the gold standard for figuring out if a nonprofit program works. And so the results are it does, right? So bottom line, not only bottom line students are more likely to enroll at a 4-year institution over a 2-year institution. They're also more likely to graduate within 4 years, graduate within 5 years. So we know that the program is working, right? We know that students are more likely to attain a bachelor's degree, which we believe is the best engine of economic mobility for themselves and their families. We're doing it at a faster pace, right? Which means that, to your point earlier, they're accumulating less in debt and they're graduating in ability to land a strong job and to, on average, our students double their income in their first job out of college when they were entering the program. So there's also that economic impact to them and their families as well.
Mm-hmm. So for yourself, doing the work, meeting these students, having the opportunity to be a part of their lives, talk to me about what it's like for you, what you've been able to see, and what you're hoping that the work will be able to continue as a takeaway.
Yeah, our students are amazing, right? And they never cease to amaze me every single day. I don't have as many opportunities to interact, with them face to face every day as I did when I was an advisor. I started with the organization back in 2011, which was only our second year open or rather 2012, our second year open in the New York City area. And I worked with students directly. So both our high school students and our college students, and really seeing their journeys, right? And how amazing and persistent and just like everything that they were doing to overcome the obstacles in their path and really be successful was really empowering and really inspirational, right? And the ability to be part of that journey, even slightly, is of course really impactful for our staff as well. And so it's an exciting journey to be a part of. I continue, of course, to try and have as many opportunities to engage with our students as I can, and really keep not only delivering program that's in service of them, but lifting up their voices to make sure that they're being heard in our programming, that we're making decisions that are in the best interest of our students, that have their voices centered. We have a student advisory board here in our New York office where we bounce ideas off of them, kind of hear their feedback on the programs, what's working, what's not, as a way to continue to iterate and make sure that they are ultimately finding bottom line as impactful in their either college application journey or in their journey through college.
Well, Victoria, we got to leave it there, but I want to thank you so much for the work that you're doing and how you continue to impact the community. It's been a pleasure having a conversation with you and learning more about the organization. Thanks for joining us here on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's been a treat.
All righty. Well, we thank Victoria for being with us. And listen, we want you to stay connected. We've got more here on the Social Justice Forum. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in a few.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Dear moms and dads, what you have achieved here today is going to help us and our futures. It is why we are coming up on stage to collect your diplomas.
You know it's true.
Mom, we love you always.
Everything I do.
When you graduate, they graduate. Visit finishyourdiploma.org to find free and supportive adult education centers near you.
Fostering a pet for a friend or neighbor can keep families together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Hey, boss. Okay?
I said I'm fine.
Me the bed, see you in the morning. With the first date, Superman, but it wasn't on it. And we lost it.
You can talk to me.
It's been really, really hard for me.
STEM is everywhere, like here, behind the scenes of The Walking Dead.
When we break down clothes, we tumble it with trisodium phosphate, rock salt, and dish detergent.
We stitched together images of our model and created a 3D set that can be walked through in a VR headset.
We're able to turn 12 walkers into 1,000 walker boards.
STEM can create new worlds on and off the screen. What will you make with STEM? Get inspired at shecanstem.com.
Feel the beat of nature at a park or forest near you. Find a forest and music inspired by nature at discovertheforest.org.
Man, it's lonely. Like, going through life lonely.
There is the therapeutic aspect of music, just expressing how you feel. I'm going to talk to Howie about his feelings, make it into a song.
It's time.
Oh, terrific.
Donating pet food is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
¿Qué color? Perfecto, mijo.
Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, mijo?
Donating to a pet's medical care is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut. The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
And welcome back to the show. Zipcare is a network of high quality and culturally sensitive urgent care facilities with convenient locations. Now, during COVID, our next guest took on the road of leading 3 actual Zipcare urgent care facilities in Harlem. And joining me now is the clinical coordinator and lead physician assistant at Zipcare 365. We've got Dr. Michael Budden, and we thank you so much for being with us, Michael.
Hey, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you sharing. And, we talk about having a facility right there in Harlem, really leading the way. Talk to us about Zipcare and the work that you've been doing in the medical field.
Zipcare is the mandating goal of Zipcare is to service the surrounding communities 5 to 10 blocks with a radius. Though we are urgent care, a lot of what we do is primary care and addressing a lot of the shortages that are apparent in the northern Harlem area. If you look at a Google search, simple Google search of urgent care facilities above, say, 135th Street, you're going to get maybe 3 things pop up. 2 of them are Zipcare, and 1 is another urgent care that's a little further away. So there is a void of urgent medical care unless you go to Harlem Hospital. But for the smaller things and the more urgent pressing needs, we're here. And that's kind of the role that we are fit into.
Yeah, you mentioned Harlem Hospital. That's the place of my birth. I was born in Harlem Hospital, and so grew up in St. Nick Projects right there on 127th Street, so I'm pretty familiar with the area. But I can say that growing up and remembering, there weren't a lot of facilities around to really be able to get the care. And as the years went on, and of course I moved out and came back, I also noticed that is a gap, and it is a gap. But what's it like for you being able to fill that gap and talk about really what makes the work that you guys do a little bit different than what we traditionally see?
I'm from Harlem. I went to City College biomedical program, and I did my rotations and a lot of my training at Harlem Hospital. I also worked at Harlem Hospital for about 5 years out of school, also Lincoln Hospital in the South Bronx. So I have family members that are in the area. And so I think that that resonates, being of the community and trained in the community, and then to then serve that community, that resonates with the patients of the community. There is COVID just worsened a gap that was already there. We had primary cares that closed, some older primary care providers, urgent care providers didn't make it through COVID. And so there was already a shortage, and then COVID just worsened that. And so what we found we opened up right after the first wave. And so what we basically found is that there's a huge need. So many people come in and say, my primary care just left, just moved, or I went to an unnamed urgent care up the street, and their wait time is an hour and a half, 2 hours. So being able to fill that role for the surrounding community is really where we focus.
When we talk about racial equity, obviously, it's sometimes hard, when you look around New York City, particularly Harlem, urban areas, when it comes to racial equity in the field of health, it becomes challenging. We talk about COVID, right? We knew that COVID, there was that disparity that particularly affected communities of color when it came to COVID. And all it did was further shine the light on what was already there, and further exacerbated that. But talk to me about the work that you're doing right now, because in many ways it is kind of like closing the gap and bridging that gap.
Trying to. We are still in urgent care, and so our main mandates are the urgent issues, but so much of what we find ourselves doing is the primary care portion, the chronic management, or the management of chronic disease states like hypertension, diabetes, asthma, those things that take more than just one visit. So on top of already doing urgent care work, we're now doing, we're about to launch a primary care facility over on 139th in Frederick Douglass. We have a urgent care facility there. We're just expanding what we offer. We also are doing women's health, which is, if you watch the news at all, you know what kind of shortages are there as well. So just trying to hear what the community and our patient population is asking for, and then tailoring what we're offering to that community. And like I said, I have family members in this community. So aside from the business aspect, it really is trying to do as much as we can with whatever resources we have to fill those gaps.
I remember growing up and going to the doctor. It was very hard. I saw nurses and probably nursing assistants who were of color, but then to see actual doctor, to be of color, to see people who look like you in those situations, few and far between. Give me, from your perspective, what that means to be able to see somebody that looks like you on the other side of that, on the other side of the bed.
Well, small correction. I'm a physician assistant. I went to the physician assistant program here at City College, but one of my main roles here at the urgent care group is recruiting. And so in my recruiting efforts, aside from being an experienced clinician, we look for people who have the cultural sensitivity to service our population. If you think about, all of us have a memory of being a child and going to the doctor and remembering it maybe being a traumatizing situation or coming out of it hating needles for the rest of your life. In those moments, that is a chance for us on the other side of it to leave a lasting impression. And so part of that impression is our bedside manner and how we provide care, but it's also what you're seeing, and melding those two together are really make a difference over the course of a child's life, but then into going into adulthood, knowing that, well, that doc looked like me, or looked like my uncle, or looked like my cousin, my favorite cousin, and knowing that they can also move into these fields as well. So it's important, and it's definitely not lost on us when we see our community.
Yeah. And so for yourself, doing this lead work and taking the lead on a lot of this, what is the hope and what's your takeaway that the community will be able to receive through the work that you do?
It's in these moments, it sometimes can feel or be perceived as, from the outside, that a lot of this is planned, and a lot of it is scheduled. But so much of it is really seeing what we're being asked of, and then trying to provide the services that are being asked for. And so going into it, COVID was the big demand. And so, increasing our COVID testing capabilities, access to medication, access to vaccines, but then as now COVID numbers go down and testing stabilizes, we're getting more requests for the primary care, more requests for women's health, sexual health. And so with the role that I'm in, I'm able to not only hear it from the patient side, but then on the business side, speak to ownership and speak to leadership and try to mesh the two and see what we can do with the resources we have. I also, I mentor students from the local college here, City College, and the new PA students that are coming out, they rotate with me. And if I can make an impression on them that, doing the primary care work, doing the urgent care work is important, then it just sets things up, years down the line, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times you're seeing a lot of things in urgent care. What are the things that we can do to better ourselves so that way we don't end up coming? I mean, of course, you have the business. We don't want to keep your doors empty, but what can we do to better keep some things from coming through your doors?
Well, so much of health is what you're putting in, and so much of it is what you're asking of your body. And so if you are putting in food that is not so nutritious and then also living a sedentary lifestyle, then your body down regulates a lot of the processes, and that's when stuff starts to fall apart, starts to break apart. If you just modify even caloric intake, how your portion size is, and just adding a little bit of physical activity, even if it is deciding to walk the 5 to 10 blocks to wherever you're going instead of, say, taking an Uber or jumping on a bus. Those small modifications, it doesn't have to be all done it doesn't have to be 5 days a week in the gym, but those small additions, taking the stairs to 3 flights instead of jumping on an elevator, those small things, they add up, and it turns into habits. And so, and when you change your habits, then it translates into just a better general overall health picture. But really, sedentary lifestyle and greasy, not nutritious meal intake are some of the biggest factors that affect so many things downstream: your immunity, weight, cholesterol, hypertension, all of those factors. So long answer short, lifestyle modifications, small ones, and just turning those things into habits.
Yeah. Well, Michael Budden, we got to leave it there, but thank you so much for sharing with us. I think it's important that we get those tips, and got to bring you back. Maybe you'll share some more so that we can live a more healthier lifestyle. But thank you for the work that you're doing, enriching the hometown. You don't understand. It does my heart good every time I see good things happen in Harlem. And you certainly are one of those people who are making a difference, and I appreciate you. So thanks for joining us, and thanks for being with us.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to speak to me and about the stuff we're working on here.
Yeah.
Come down and see us.
No, listen, that's a fact. Invitation to Harlem, I receive it. So anytime, brother, you got it. I'll definitely come and check you out. I appreciate you.
Thanks for talking to me.
All right, Michael Budden, our guest here on the Social Justice Forum. I'll let you know that we come to the end of our show today. I hope that you enjoyed this week's discussion on the Social Justice Forum. Some great informative guests. Really, that's what we want to do. We want to elevate the conversation. We want to promote civic engagement. We want to bring you the information and the things that matter the most, so that way you can become better informed and stay on topic. I'm Daren Jaime saying thank you. Continue to join us next week. We'll bring you another hot episode where we really delve into some of the things that matter here and critical to social justice in the Social Justice Forum. I'm Daren Jaime saying take care, God bless, and we'll see you soon.